Guys, welcome back. I hope you're doing good right now. I don't know when you'll watch this, so I guess I can't really say. But for me, it's currently off. Um, Thursday. Yeah, basically Friday though. Thursday night. Um, we made it. But we got two NBA topics. But first, two interesting topics in my opinion. But first, I want to start this podcast by thanking my uncle Pat. He nominated me to have a little radio interview, which was a super cool experience. They ran it on the radio last Sunday on KYW, I believe, and it was really really cool. To hear that live and to be able to have my audience expand, because if you look at my view count, it did have a little spike on the my tennis video. Nonetheless, I guess it's because my recent one. Man, tennis is such a goated sport and has such a niche community. It's like, yeah, it doesn't matter how you get into watching tennis, but it's so fun to watch. It's a great sport, and I try and bring more people to it because you pick someone and stick by them. It's really fun. Um, Tournaments every week. It is the off season right now, and there's still challenger level tournaments to watch. But um, that is besides the point. Anyways, so one more time, thank you to my Uncle Pat because that was really cool. And without further ado, let's get into the video. So our two topics for today is first, Chris Paul being told to go home by the Clippers. Wow. And second, the Giannis trade saga. I don't really know how to put it, because because I don't know if he's gonna get traded or not, so I can't really say um if it's a trade saga yet. But he's gonna get traded. But I can't say that because he hasn't requested a trade formally. But he faked a little injury over the past few few games. Like he faked an injury. I'm trying to find this thing. He was faking an injury and or maybe not faking, but like exaggerating, I'll say, an injury so that he could not have to play for the Bucks because he knows um that he because he knows that he wants to be traded. He wants out of Milwaukee. He thinks that he is good enough, which he obviously is, to be on a winning team, and Milwaukee is not that. They tried to appease him when Brook Lopez left by bringing in Miles Turner, and while Miles Turner hasn't been a bad center, he's not been the star they were looking for. He's got 12 and 6 a game, which is just not acceptable for the center when Giannis is averaging 29, 10, and 6 a game. Um, yeah, so he is out with a calf injury. They met to discuss his future in Miami. We'll get into that, but first let's talk about the Chris Paul um, stuff. So I don't remember exactly when it was. It was a day or two ago that the LA Clippers told Chris Paul that he needs to go home. I don't know if they officially cut him yet. Let's check right now, but he's cooked, right? Like he's not on the team. He's not with the team. Um, yeah, he is cut, I think. But basically, what happened was Chris Paul was one of the great NBA players who's still around. One of those guys who's been in the league since before I was born, about 20 years at this point. And coming into this year, he knew that he was on his last wheels. He knew the wheels were falling off the wagon. He knew it was over. So he made it very clear that this was his last year. This was kind of like, his retirement tour, his farewell to the league because of how much he's contributed over the years. And so he decided, because for the past few years he's been bouncing around. He played for Phoenix for a while, a few years. Then he went to Golden State for a year. Then he went to the Spurs and played with Wemby for just a bit. I feel like that was the end of one year. And so he decided to sign with the Los Angeles Clippers, which is where he played the majority or the most of his career, I'd say. He played a lot in New Orleans when he was young, the Pelicans, but like the prime of his career, you would say, in a sense, he played in LA, and in LA he never had a bad season in that. He consistently averaged 15 points and 10 assists for them, 9.1, 9.7, 10, 9.2, 10.7, 19.1 points, 19.1 points, 19.5 points, like consistently good double stats. And he was a part of the Lob City Clippers, if you know what that means. That was there's fun to watch Clippers teams where they might not have won the most games, in some years they did, but they him, Blake Griffin, and DeAndre Jordan would do the pick and rolls and the lobs and just get some crazy dunks, some cool plays, and that's how he got most of his assists. Obviously, he went to Houston and played with Harden a little bit later for 2 years, and then he went a year in OKC and then Phoenix. But he played the prime of his career mostly in LA. And so he decided, this is my last year. I might as well go back to the city where I played most of my career. He goes back to the Clippers for the 2025 season. And let's be honest, he's not playing well, right? But when he's averaging 14 minutes a game and 3 points a game. And so that's where it gets interesting, because I think this is Clippers' fault and not Chris Paul's fault. Because to me, as a Sixers fan, what I see in Chris Paul is the same thing that the Sixers do with Kyle Lowry, where, you're the old vet point guard who shouldn't be in the game, right? You're too old. Your last legs. You're retiring in the coming years, if not the year, like Chris Paul announced on the podcast. So, you should not be playing 14 minutes a game. Your role is to pass on knowledge and game skills and teach the younger guys. Like in his case, I guess. Well, who do the Clippers have that's young? That's actually a good question. Because I think Clippers. You think they're the oldest team in the league by far, but they do have some young guys. They have Kobe Buffkin is no, he was not. Cam Christie's there. Kobe Brown's there. Yeah, but their team is so old. Yeah, and they have a lot of injuries too. I guess, they're on the way older side, so they only have a few young guys. But you're not there to be the guy. You're there to teach the younger guys how to be the guy that you once were. That's really a retirement home right there. They got James Harden, 35-ish. Kawhi Leonard, 35-ish. Zubac, 35-ish. Chris Dunn, he's definitely over 35. Nico Batum, he's like 40. And then obviously Brook Lopez, who is out of the rotation, which is just crazy. None of their... They signed 3 players in free agency. Bradley Beal, out for the season. Chris Paul left the team, and Brook Lopez out of the rotation. Crazy that none of them worked out. But I'll get to the point here soon. The thing about this Chris Paul thing that was so interesting is it was like everyone thought that this was mutually respected, like a covenant that this was the last ride and he was just going to be there and then retire a Clipper and everything would be great. But apparently the Clippers organization did not see it that way, because they told Chris Paul that he will no longer be with the team and to go home. They sent him home. Which is kind of crazy, because it's like, what did you expect? Right? He went on a podcast before the year started and said, yeah, I'm done after this year. So if you weren't going to let him ride out the year, and there's do you think he just wanted to come back because he was going to, ball out? No, he came back for obvious reasons. It's his farewell, It's like, if Luka went back to Dallas, that's a bad comp. But, you know what I mean? He spent his prime there, and when he gets old, he might go back because that's the city that, raised him, He didn't want to be the franchise guy. He just wanted to be a part of that team, and they kicked him off, which is crazy. And I really don't respect the Clippers for doing that. I think it's, a very bad look on their organization. I understand it's a business at the end of the day, but doing that when we all knew what that was it's ridiculous. And yeah, he's washed. He's not good anymore, but it's sad to see, man, from the standpoint of a fan of the game and not a fan of the business. Anyways, we can move on now. Now that I'm done ranting about that, I just think it's ridiculous. But now we can talk about Giannis Antetokounmpo. You get the gist. So the interesting thing about Giannis is just before the season. Let me pull up this article real quick. Just before the season, Giannis was all in on the Bucks, um, meaning that he said that he would play for the Bucks. And Giannis has always been one of those guys where you don't know how much he's in it for the city and how much he's in it for glory. You think he's in it for the city because, he stayed loyal to them for so long. Small market teams, they do bad, they get the good players, and then LA, the Lakers or the Clippers come in, or the Warriors down in California come in, or you know what I mean? Um, and they take them. Wait, hold on. Let me. Yeah. Um. Yeah. Okay. I just wanted to make sure I didn't say something dumb because I knew they used to be in Oakland, so I didn't want to have to cut myself out there. I just had to confirm my geography knowledge. Um. Yeah, but it's just like those guys usually stay, wow, loyal. Or not loyal because you get a big check from a big market team and it starts to get to be like soccer in a sense where it's like, yeah, you can develop good talent, but if you don't have the tools to make the talent stay, it's like hard. And so when players like Giannis come along that stay loyal for so long, and stay good for so long, like Giannis is a good player. It's not like he's a bust and stayed loyal, but he's a good player. And then say they're all in, sign new contracts and do this, and then this happens. It's interesting. Because again, a few days ago, here's the rundown of the timeline as I perceive it. Um, Giannis preseason said he's all in on the Bucks. He loves Milwaukee. Then a few days ago, deletes every post, tweet, before since 2021 about the Bucks that does not include finals tweets and in-season tournament tweets from when they won. So basically, he kept up the winnings and took away everything else. And if you remember, Giannis was the player who gave that speech to the reporter, where the reporter said, "Since you lost in the first round, even though you did so good this season in the regular season, does it feel like a failure?" And it was like, there's no failure. Um, I don't know how to paraphrase it correctly, but he basically said that you can't really fail at like sport, um, because like you're gonna come back and you still did so much work and you put in so much and you gave so much that you can't really completely just disregard it and say it's a failure. You know what I mean? So he was a player that has always been keen on winning, but also understanding, right, how to progress. But recently, after doing that, he had a meeting with the Bucks to discuss his future, and then he was listed on the injury list the day after that meeting with, I believe it is a calf injury, and I believe it is 3 to 4 weeks, maybe 2 to 4, depending on timeline. Um, but you understand the point is that he was basically it's basically like when you give your 2 weeks notice and they're like, we don't want you here anymore, leave. You know what I mean? He's given his notice. He's like, yo, I'm not gonna be on the Bucks anymore, and they're like, okay, well then you're not playing, right? Like we don't want you playing if you're not gonna stay here. So he's out, and so he's gonna be traded most likely. But the problem is Giannis. If he gets traded, you're gonna have to give up a lot to get him. So I have up 5 trading spots that could happen, and we'll go through them. They're very interesting. I think he might go to LA, but none of these are LA. They're ESPN, and I want to talk about what I would think if these trades went through. So let's start with trade number 1, um, which would see Giannis going to Golden State, and Golden State also acquiring Thanasis. We did talk about this being similar because Golden State's a big market team. And to make the contracts work, Golden State would give up Draymond Green. Wow, that'd be surprising. Jonathan Kuminga and Buddy Hield. They would also give, in this scenario, 4 first-round pick. 1 is protected 21 through 30. I don't understand that. It's probably already something that happened. But so you see how how these big players get traded, how the contract have to work, because that's Buddy Hield, who is on a not low contract, Kuminga, who's not on a low contract, and Green, who's not on a low contract. Like, none of them are, like, crazy contracts, but you have to stack them up, trade a lot of stuff to get Giannis, including 4 picks in that trade. I think this would be a decent trade for Bucks, but I would try and get a higher market player. um, and a lower player and like 3 decent players, but they do get a lot of picks in this one, and Giannis stays with Thanasis, which is obviously because if Thanasis isn't involved in the trade, then he's probably hitting the free agent market, and maybe Giannis can force his new team to pick them up anyway, but like he'd get cut. So I think this would be an interesting trade, but I don't see this one happening. No, I don't see the Bucks accepting that. So the next trade, the San Antonio Spurs would acquire just Giannis, no Thanasis. They would give up Jordan McLaughlin, Kelly Olynyk, Harrison Barnes, and then the big part of the trade, Stephon Castle, as well as 3 first-round picks, 2027, 2029, 2032. And before I say anything dumb like, oh, these picks in the future don't matter, say that to the Thunder, who are currently 20-1 and have a top 5 pick. They traded. They made the trades for the later picks, and it's working out for them really, really well. Unfortunately for everyone else. Yeah. So they're cooking, but in this trade, I think the Bucks could do this to keep the fans engaged, to keep the upside there. I don't see it happening. I give this more likely than the Warriors trade, and less likely than maybe some others will go over. But I could see the Bucks accepting this trade just to keep that upside on the franchise. Be like, yeah, but we got Castle. You never know. He could be the face of the league in 2 years. So I think that would be a good trade to try and soften the blow. Now, this trade I genuinely could see happening because Giannis has talked about New York a lot, and New York next would acquire Jericho Sims and Giannis. The Bucks would get a 2032 first-round pick swap, a 2030 first-round pick, a 2028 first-round pick, a 2026 second-round pick, and a 2026 first-round pick, as well as Tyler Kloak, Pacom Dadiet, and Cat. And I could see this happening because the Bucks get a big market player in Cat. He could be a superstar. But the only problem with this is they sell Miles Turner, who's basically Cat, but a little bit worse. Like both bigs who stretch the floor that can also play in the paint and have lockdown defense. So I think that I don't like that trade. So let's move on. This trade would never happen. Giannis and Thanasis, Sengun, Van Vliet, 1 pick. No, never happening. Van Vliet's retiring in 2 years, and Sengun is not worth the honest, and they only get 1 pick. They would rather take. That's affordable. That's terrible. Last trade. I don't think any of these trades are going to happen. Maybe New York, maybe San Antonio. Atlanta gets Giannis and Cole Anthony. Bucks get Zachary Ricochet and Trae Young, and a 2026 pick, a 2027 pick, a 2029 pick. Wow, yeah. I mean, are you telling me the Bucks wouldn't do this trade? Now I look at it, that's kind of crazy. You're getting a number 1 overall pick in their second season, a superstar level player who can play as a superstar level player, and like 5 picks. So I guess if I had to pick one, I'd say the Bucks would trade for that one, as Gibbs runs in his 3rd touchdown of the night when I started Montgomery. Yay! That's great. None of you share the love when you can do that. Obviously, I'm just joking. That has nothing to do with Giannis either. But if you watched this all the way through, thank you for watching, and I will see you on Saturday for obvious reasons and my predictions.